Okay, Rose. The first thing you have to understand about honey, the substance that our bodies are able to produce, is that in essence it allows you to bond with another living thing. Regardless of what it is, so long as it is alive, the honey that we produce will empower them, bring them to them best selves, their best selves, the pinnacle of their strength and ability. It can be given to plants, animals, insects. It doesn't really matter. Just like everything else that we do, once they are given this gift, they are filled with the absolute limit of vibrance and life, taking them to the absolute utmost of their own abilities and physical state. Once given some of our honey, any living thing that it is given to will be, well, somewhat entranced, becoming infatuated with us, be filled with the desire to protect us, and do what is in our best interest. It is an exchange between the two. We give them life and vitality, and in exchange they grant us their loyalty. However, the process is only temporary, and abates within a few days. There are no harmful effects for either us or the living creatures that we give it to. In fact, even though the primary effects may fade away, they will still most likely feel very good, feeling an extra amount of exuberance for several weeks afterwards. They even heal faster, recovering from injuries faster than they would, naturally. Okay, so you're telling me that we can produce super juice, like some weird extract that makes whatever we give it to super strong and obedient, that they'll just do whatever we tell them to. Well, yes, basically, but only for a few days. It is this ability that allows us to conscribe the natural forces, gain their aid in achieving our ends, which are usually to benefit life as a whole, or protect us from very real danger. But these are primarily the abilities of the Sky Ray. I'm not certain if you'll actually get them all. What? Rose said. But I thought I was one of you. Well, you are, sweetheart, her mother replied. You are my daughter, and thus you are Sky Ray. There is no doubt that you will get some semblance of our abilities. However, your father was not Sky Ray, so it's very possible that, like his hunger, you have received other things that you will have inherited from him. My hunger? Rose said, as the thought came back to her that despite the fact that her and her mother were the same race, her mother didn't eat, and she did, which quite frankly didn't make sense. So you're saying the reason that I eat is because of my dad? I mean, how is he different? He's from the same planet, right? The same people? No, sweetheart. As I said, your father was from a different race, still originating from the same homeworld, but from the opposite end of a war. You see, there is always a balance in all things, and for the Sky Ray, the Okar were that balance. We of the Sky Ray are givers of life. This is our nature and our purpose. But as I said, there is a balance to everything. And wherever there is life given, there must also be life that is taken. We of the Sky Ray understand this. It is simply part of the balance of life. If life grows too abundant, then it will begin to choke itself out. And so too, the beauty of life chokes itself out, withering away and dying. Is simply not enough for anyone or anything to sustain all. And so there is a counterbalance, a race that exists to take life. These are the Okar, the race from which your father hailed. Mom, you're starting to scare me a bit. You're making them sound really bad. No, honey, they were not bad. They were natural. No different than a tiger. They were alpha predators. They hunted and killed in order to eat, helping maintain the balance of life. This is why you have such an appetite, because you are half Okar. And just as you inherited your father's hunger, it is also possible that you may have inherited some of their abilities as well. I'm uncertain of how many or which ones. Okay, Rose replied. Well, they sound really scary. I mean, was Dad scary? Well, of course he was, sweetheart. He was Okar. Scary is kind of what they do. But, despite his flaws, scary or not, he was also a very kind man, and loving, caring deeply for those who he bonds to, including me, and though he wasn't aware of it at the time, I'm sure that he would have loved you just as much. I, unfortunately, was never able to tell him that I was with child, but I'm certain that he would have loved you. Been overjoyed, in fact. Okay, I guess, Rose replied. But one question. You said Dad was an alpha predator. Well, if you're a plant, then how exactly is that supposed to work if Dad was an animal? No, sweetheart, your father was a plant. The same as me, just of a different sort. Your father's closest relatives here on this world would most likely be those in the trap family of plants. You've heard of a Venus flytrap, correct? They lure in insects, ensnaring and then eating them. Well, this is a close semblance to your father and the rest of the Okar. They were carnivorous plants, and they were not without honor or a sense of integrity. They were not simply mindless monsters. The Okar prized themselves as being warriors, and despite all other things, they were the strongest of the races that existed on our world, and held the greatest status when it came to deciding tactics in combat when war did reach our world. The Okar possess a very different set of abilities than we of the Eternal Bloom. Primarily, their abilities are offensive rather than defensive. The Okar possess the ability to store massive amounts of proteins and metabolize them at a massively accelerated rate. Essentially, they could convert the food that they eat into physical strength and speed, stamina. The greater your ability to hunt and gather food, the greater your physical strength and speed would become. And the Okar don't actually have a limit. Unlike human beings who eat enough and become full, the Okar have no such issue. If they desired it, they could simply eat everything until nothing remained, never becoming full, able to devour a creature the size of a human being in moments, and just as fast as it's devoured, metabolize it, turning whatever they devoured into physical strength. Quite frankly, it's terrifying. But the Okar were not a squeamish people. They were warriors, after all, made to maintain the balance between life and death. They were omnivorous and ate everything. Plants, animals, insects, whatever they needed to survive. But regardless of the fact that they could eat everything if they wanted, they always maintained the balance. They ate only enough to sustain themselves and no more. Despite the fact that they have a ravenous capability to eat, they can actually go without eating for a great deal of time, with seemingly no ill effects at all. They also possessed other physical abilities. To be honest, This is why I believed that you would most likely not stir any of their abilities, because you did not get their primary offensive capabilities. And what are those? Rose asked.